Hi, my name is Joel Phillips. I'm CEO and founder of ProShark, software development company and digital marketing agency. I am also the director of technology at Strategic Advisor Board, strategicadvisorboard.com. And we get a lot of requests. We get a lot of requests for information on how best to survive and thrive in the digital marketing age of today. With a lot of the changes, it's been become a lot more challenging for companies to have positive marketing ROI. It's become challenging for companies to navigate the digital space. So we decided to start something called Tech Tip. Tech Tip is going to be a short 3 to 5 minute video, and we're going to do it on a regular basis. And that video is going to cover a topic or series of topics. What we'd like to do is have you, if you have questions that you want answered, this is the space that we're going to answer them in. You can send your email to techtip@proshark.com. Again, that's techtip@proshark.com, TECHTIP@proshark.com. And we will be happy to answer those questions. And with this series, we're going to start with something that's very challenging for a lot of companies, especially small to medium sized businesses, and that's digital footprint, specifically your website. It's a very difficult area just because there are so many things that are happening that are changing the dynamics of websites and how they work for people today. It used to be that websites were simply a business card. They were if I've got one, great. If I don't, great, no problem. But now with over, I think 98% the last time I checked, people starting their purchasing decisions online. If you don't have a website that meets the needs of today's market, you're costing your company significant amount of business. Now, all of you know that you have all of these advertisements, hey, build a new site, make this new site. But the question becomes is, do you invest all of this money into creating a new site? Maybe you've just created a site, but there's some challenges to that site. And we're going to start by pointing out some of the challenges that you may have to an existing site and how you can deal with them. Today, we're going to cover website optimization. So say you've just built this beautiful WordPress site or Shopify site or Duda site. Say you've built this beautiful site and you come to find out that Google now ranks based on something called Core Web Vitals. What does this mean to you? This means that if the mobile version of your site doesn't load in about 3 seconds, one, you're going to get penalized by Google. Two, you're going to lose a significant majority of people because we're an impatient crowd. Significant majority of people close or they abandon your website if it doesn't load on mobile in about 3 seconds. And mobile has become the go-to place for people to open up websites and start interacting with you as a company. So that said, the question comes down to, okay, do I keep building new sites to meet the increasing demands? Because Core Web Vitals will now directly impact Core Web Vitals being the Google set of metrics that determines where you rank based on the performance of your website, that directly affects how your site is ranked. So I think that we'll probably go a little bit more into the Core Web Vitals today. And then tomorrow we'll start covering some of the things that you can do with an existing site. Maybe you need to move to a new site. We'll start taking a look and providing some of the information you need to make that determination. Core Web Vitals is a set of metrics, like I said, by Google that determines how your website performs both on your mobile platforms and on desktop platforms. Tomorrow, I think I'll show you how to rank your website, how to tell how your website performs when Google specifically looks at your website. So that's it for today. Thank you for viewing and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye. So today we're going to continue talking about your website and website optimization. The question we had posed was, what do I need to have my website optimized, or do I need to get a new website? So it's a difficult question. We discussed yesterday core web vitals and how Google sees your site. So today I want to show you what they look at, how they look at it, and some of the things that we can do to make a difference. Maybe you don't need a new site to rank well in Google. And that's, if we can avoid the extra cost of doing that, then that's something that we want to do. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples, both before and after, and we'll take a look at that. And then if you have any questions, be sure and send them to us. Again, that's techtip@proshark.com. Let's just dive right in and take a look. So what I'm going to show you now is how Google actually sees your site. And you're going to be maybe a little bit surprised at what they see. So pagespeed.web.dev actually belongs to Google. And this is what they view your site as from a performance perspective. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to just take a couple of Shopify sites, and we're going to go to Shopify. This is actually on Shopify. These are some of the sites that they feature on their homepage. Let's just go down, take the first one. Tweet Denim. Okay, so we'll just grab this URL, Control C, and we'll go right back to the Google PageSpeed Insights. We will post that in and we'll analyze it. Okay, we see that they look at, and these are the core web vitals right here, and you can see core web vitals assessment. This site passes. It's got a largest contentful paint in the green, first input delay in the green, cumulative layout in the green, first contentful paint in the green. And if you want to know more about them, you can just click on it and it'll give you all the definitions. But one thing I want to show you here is the performance. The performance is not good. And what this means is that you're going to get penalized for anything under 50. Typically, it's going to be closer to 65, which is the mid-range of this score right here in the yellow that you can see. But here's the problem we have. This site, the first contentful paint, you can see the progress down here of how it loads up. But the first contentful paint's in 3.2 seconds. And you see that's in red. And what that means that it takes before you see anything is 3.2 seconds. Typically, a mobile user, a mobile viewer for your site will abandon your site if it doesn't start to load or if they don't see activity within 3 seconds. We're just an impatient crowd. That's all there is. The time to interactive on this site, and remember, this is the #1 featured site on Shopify, 18.6 seconds to interactive. That's really slow. And if you notice right here, 18.6 seconds to interactive means how soon can I interact with that site? And that's actually a pretty slow load time. So let's go back to Shopify because I want to make sure we don't hit an anomaly. Nausea, well, we'll keep this PG just in case. Okay, let's take a look at Tentry. So Tentry, let's get to their homepage. Okay, it looks like clothing shopping site. So Control C. We'll get back to PageSpeed Insights and we'll load it up and analyze. Again, we're looking at some of the initial metrics that come up. This failed the Core Web Vitals assessment. Remember, this is a site that is featured on Spotify. Google does not favor this site and it will be penalized because it, #1, passes or does not pass their Core Web Vital assessment. But let's take a look at some of these, like largest contentful paint. That's the biggest image, basically. Their performance is 23. You got some of these hitting the green, some in the yellow, but a couple in the red, and that's not good. 4.2 seconds. They're losing a significant amount of traffic just for abandonment because they don't load fast enough. And this, again, this is on mobile. You have a desktop view. They don't perform too well in the desktop view either. Heading back to mobile, one thing that we can do is we can adjust all of the metrics on the site. we can take a site that exists. If you don't want to invest in creating a brand new site that's got the latest technology, that's got new layouts and such, maybe you've got a site that is truly functioning, maybe you've got a site that is marginal, then we take a look, and we're going to split this up into two because we're going a little bit long today. But I do want to show you one site that we did an optimization on. This is also a Shopify site. Let's take a look at Chelsea King shop. And let's analyze this. This is one that we did work on, and this is what happens when you do an optimization to a site. If you remember, the others were in the low 20s from a performance perspective. Now, when Google takes a look at this site, it is going to probably come in around the 80s. Yeah, 81. There we go. We still have room to improve on this, but 81 is far better than in the 20s from a load perspective. If you notice, we have our first contentful paint in 2.2 seconds. That means we are grabbing the attention of somebody who is browsing the site on mobile. We are grabbing their attention. We're starting to load in 2.2 seconds. The magic threshold number is 3 seconds. We went way over. We'll continue this again tomorrow. I appreciate your time and thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, please send them in to techtip@proshark.com. Thanks a lot. Bye. I am back for episode number 3 of Tech Tip. Tech Tip is a program that we're launching to answer questions that people have about digital space and what's currently going on in the market, what the trends are, how they can better influence people around them in the digital space, and what they can do to improve their footprint. Currently, or as of yesterday, we were talking about website optimization versus getting a new site. What can you do to improve your rankings on your existing site? And we're going to take a look. We'll finish off the optimization piece today. We were looking at yesterday a site that we had optimized, and we saw the scores were coming in the 20s. That's pretty normal for any CMS site. You've got Shopify. The biggest ones we deal with are Shopify, WordPress. We do Duda as well. We do Bootstrap, which are just open themes using a Bootstrap framework. And if you have questions on any of those, we encourage you to send your questions in to techtip@proshark.com. We will get them answered. If we don't know the answer, we'll find out the answer for you. Let's continue with where we were yesterday. We were looking at a site that we had optimized, chelseaking.shop, and where it was coming in on the score for performance. Again, most websites will come in the 20 range for overall performance. The metrics you need to be wary of: Core Web Vitals. If you don't pass Core Web Vitals, you are going to be penalized in Google ranking. These include, and you can simply go to pagespeed.web.dev, which is Google's algorithmic assessment of your site, and you can see where your site ranks in here on mobile and or on desktop. So if we look at desktop for this site, it's a 96. Once we were done optimizing, mobile is 81. Anything above about 65 is acceptable and will typically have the assessment passed moniker here. And that's just an estimation. Every site's different components of the site will impact the score. But what you want to get from an overall assessment perspective is you want to be green on all of these factors right here. And then performance, we were discussing that anybody on mobile, they'll give you attention span for about 3 seconds. Once you hit 3 seconds, if you're not loading up your site within that 3-second time frame, then there's a good chance that they may abandon your site and not look into it any further. So you want to be at 2.2 first contentful paint. Anything under 3 seconds is good. And you want to be interactive as quickly as possible. What interactive means is that's the first moment or first second where they can actually do something on your site, from scroll to click on a button, etc. The question becomes, do I optimize or do I get a new site? And it's a difficult question. I mean, obviously a new site's an investment. The thing that we'll take a look at, well, and first I want to finish off by going through any last items on Core Web Vitals. This about year and a half ago is when it became apparent, and it's when Google adjusted their algorithms to take Core Web Vitals into consideration when ranking your site. We can't stress this enough. It's something that you need to do, whether you do adjust your existing site or whether you get a new site. Either one, this has to be taken into consideration when you're doing that. It's super important that you compete in the digital arena, especially nowadays when there's so much noise out there and when there's so many sites competing for the consumer. And we'll go into community versus advertising and things like that a little bit later. We've got another question surrounding that, but I wanted to address the Core Web Vitals and page speed and how that impacts your footprint. The question becomes, do I optimize or do I get a new site? And it's not a simple question. It's not one that you can say, oh, yeah, great. Let's just fix up this site and it'll fix all of our problems, because it's not necessarily the case. A lot of things to take into consideration when it comes to websites. And one is performance. Two is ease of use. Three is content and design. A lot of people don't like to read, but you have to have the content to generate SEO ranking from a keyword perspective. But four, and this has become so important lately, and is probably the next topic that we'll dive into starting tomorrow, but customer journey. Customer journey is the path that a consumer takes when they hit your website. The attention span of the consumer, because of all the noise in the space, the attention span of the consumer has gone down drastically. First, when they hit your site, there has to be clear and concise messaging saying, here's who we are, here's what we offer, and here's what you can do with this website. And remember that we had already discussed that websites are more than just a business card anymore. It used to be, okay, got a website, great. Don't have a website, no big deal. They're going to come visit us in the showroom. Online is the new showroom. It's your new office. So the things that they can do on your website will increase interaction with your company physically. 98%, last I checked, I think that's an approximate number, but it's about right. 98% of people start their purchasing decisions online nowadays, whether it be mobile, whether it be desktop, whether it be tablet. They all start their purchasing decisions online. And what that means is you have to present, if you want to attract those customers, you have to present a customer journey that leads them from the front page to the purchase, or from the front page to a phone call. That customer journey is so critical, and that's got to be one of the primary decisions when you're looking at either creating a new site or improving your existing site. So we'll take a look tomorrow. I think we've already gone way over again. We're trying to keep these in between 3 and 5 minutes, but we'll take a look tomorrow at customer journey and the impact that it'll have on your decision to improve a site or to purchase a new site. This is episode number 4 of Tech Tips. We try to answer questions about your presence in the digital space. And we've had a question. We try to keep these episodes between 3 and 5 minutes. We haven't been too successful so far, so we're going to try and make it a little bit shorter. So we had somebody in, before we move on back into customer journey, we had somebody email in and ask us on the website optimization that we were covering, if there was more than just one tool to measure your performance, your site performance. And we brought up pagespeed.web.dev, which is Google's algorithmic tool. There's also GT metrics, but they also use something called Lighthouse, which is the driver of Google's algorithm. So it's all kind of tied in together. We like pagespeed.web.dev just because it's a direct measure of website performance without any overhead or external interpretation. That said, let's move back into customer journey because today's a fun-filled episode where we discuss how a customer travels through your website. We were discussing yesterday that a customer needs to have a very specific path to follow, a very easy path to follow through your site. And this impacts whether or not, when you go back and improve the page speed performance of your site, do you improve your site or do you replace your site? And there's a lot of technologies, and we're going to go a little bit deeper down the technology road in the next few episodes. But there's a lot of technologies that might push you towards one action or another, whether it's optimizing your existing site or moving to a new site. But the one thing that we want to take a look at today is the customer journey and how they can flow through your site. If you don't have a good customer journey, if you don't have an easy flow for a customer to follow, then it becomes a question of, can you easily edit what you have to make that customer journey something that a customer, it all comes back to stickiness on the site. If a customer gets frustrated, if they can't see an easy path to follow, then they're going to abandon your site. They're going to abandon whatever process they're in the middle of. If you have a low page time on page score, then that's probably due to the fact that customers finding difficulty at some point in your site or not. And this all becomes a question of, how deep do you want to go from a website perspective? So there's all of these metrics and parameters you want to take a look at. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, not sometimes, oftentimes it gets a little overwhelming. So we want to try and break it all down to make it easy for you to make that determination. Do I fix what I have? Do I start from scratch? Many web developers out there, they create a site and they create the site just based on content, and then that's it. They're done. They're looking to, utilize keyword content. If they're even at a level where they do that, they utilize keyword content, they utilize some of the basic SEO structure of pages, but they don't take into account the consumer. And if you don't take into account the consumer, how can you expect them to follow through if you haven't paid attention to the experience they're going to have? That customer journey is the core of whether or not you'll have a successful site. You may be able to get people to your site using SEO tactics, using paid ads, etc. But if they don't stay there, or if they don't interact with your site, then what good is it? That's something that we try to help people with whenever we're taking a look at your website. We try to help create that flow, and we're happy to make an assessment on your site with you and say, you know what, yes, we can adjust this or adjust something about your site that'll give your customers an easier path to the end, which is your conversion. Or we'll say, you know what, this is going to be challenging no matter what we do, and we'll make a recommendation. That said, try and do that yourself. View your site as you follow through as if you were a consumer, and looking at it through the different lenses, perhaps you can see where you may find things that you can adjust to make it simpler for them to get from the start to the finish. Anyway, that's episode 4, customer journey. Appreciate it. If you have a question, please send it in to techtip@proshark.com. Thanks. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Here with episode number 5 of Tech Tips. And this is where we try to answer in about 3 to 5 minutes, working on that time frame in about 3 to 5 minutes. Answer questions regarding digital footprint, how you can increase your presence digitally, what you can do to have impact in the digital space. And it's become such an important space, especially since 2020 where more and more people are online working remotely. 98% of the population does their initial purchase research online now. Most people use mobile or tablet browsers as their starting point. And we had a question that, I mean, we've been working on website optimization. We've been looking into customer journey, but we had a question I'm going to sidestep for today. We had a question come in regarding website security. It's a big question, and it may take us a couple of episodes to get through this. But website security is becoming more and more of a hazard for small to medium-sized businesses, and it's something that has to be taken into consideration. Whether you're working with a marketing agency, whether you're doing it yourself, you have to look at security as one of your primary factors when it comes to websites and your digital presence. And what I mean by that is hacking is not decreasing. Hacking is increasing. And that means that as the hacking population increases, they need more and more targets, and they need easier targets because the path of least resistance is always going to be their target, their primary modus operandi, just like everybody else. Path of least resistance means that people, small to medium-sized businesses who don't think that they're going to be a target, who don't pay attention to security, who think that the cost of security is enormous. It's not. And it's far cheaper to pay a little bit for peace of mind and security now than it is to go back and try and clean up a hack or a breach where your domain is hijacked, where your anything technology, your computer is ransomware, where you have phishing. I mean, phishing is getting, and I think this is pretty obvious, but phishing is getting very sophisticated to the point where even technology experts are being lured into providing information that they would not otherwise provide. It's really something that needs to be taken seriously. Today, I want to focus on, we've got a little bit of time left. I want to focus on website security. No matter, and I'm not here to pick on WordPress, but I'm going to a little bit today because no matter what website platform you use, there are security holes, and you have to look at where those security holes come from to be able to prevent them. WordPress is a collection of plugins. It's a platform that typically has a builder associated with it. Anytime you introduce a third party to a platform, and what I mean by that is if you use WordPress with Divi, if you use WordPress with Elementor, if you use WordPress with Beaver, those are all third-party plugins or builders that you put into the platform. And yes, they went back to their own block building with Gutenberg. But if you put any of those third-party elements into a platform, then what tends to happen is it creates security holes that people can exploit. Then you take a look at not only the builder, but you step back and take a look at all of the plugins they deploy. And we're talking not thousands, we're talking not hundreds, not thousands, we're talking millions of people on WordPress platforms that have been hacked, attacked, data stolen, websites hijacked. This is something that you need to take seriously when you consider where do you put your website? Who do you place your trust in when it comes to website development? Because every plugin that you put into a WordPress platform, the issue I have with it is built by a third party and moderately vetted for security vulnerability, but the majority of hacks come in when you set up a WordPress website. They come in automated attacks via the web. People who search go out and just have bots that search for WordPress sites, and they try and exploit. If you leave your login URL all in the same place, if you don't mask your URL, if you leave administrator or admin as your default login, then they'll exploit it on website launch for WordPress. But then as you install plugins, the majority of attacks come in through plugin exploits because these plugins are built by third parties. So when you look at a CMS system, take a look and see if the plugins are built and held on external platforms, or if they're built and held and vetted internally. For that reason, we use a certain framework that is highly secure and one that is proven not to be exploited. So that minimizes your risk of intrusion, it minimizes your risk of ransom, it minimizes your risk of hostage taking when it comes to your digital assets. Security is something that's super important. We'll leave it at websites today. I'll finish off security tomorrow by talking about your network, whether it be remote, whether it be a physical network that you utilize at work. And then once we get past security, we'll go back to website presence and things that you can do to either optimize or revamp your website. That's it for today. Thank you for joining. If you do have a question, send it to us at techtip@proshark.com, TECHTIP@proshark.com. Thank you for viewing, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Back with episode number 6. And I'd like to take a moment out of our day before we get started to thank everyone for an outstanding first week. I'm a little bit surprised at the response, so thank you very much. I want to start. We're in the middle of security. We discussed yesterday website security, and we received an email that questioned whether or not I dug into WordPress a little bit deeply, and one thing I wanted to do is make sure that this is platform independent. I mean, it doesn't have to do with just WordPress. I would say that probably WordPress is the worst offender. They own 42% of the market, and most people don't realize the exposure that they have. But I am not here to bash WordPress. WordPress is a viable platform. You can take steps to secure your WordPress site. If it's not already secured, let us know, and we're happy to help walk you through that. Just send your questions to techtip@proshark.com. Again, that's techtip, TECHTIP @proshark.com. And I want to finish off today with security. We looked at website security in certain platforms, some of the shortfalls, what you need to look for on website platforms before you build your platform. We've looked so far at website optimization. Go back to episode 1 and we'll look at optimization versus rebuilding a site, or optimizing your site versus rebuilding a site. And then we've also looked at page speed insights, security, and customer journey. Security, to finish it off, there's website security, there's exposed digital assets on the web. That's one set of security. And your security strategy is only as strong as your weakest link. One thing that we recommend, and this is something that most digital agencies don't do. One thing we recommend is perform an assessment on your network, on your endpoints. You can have, especially with IoT, Internet of Things, you can have many touch, even in a home office, you can have many touch points that allow intrusion into your network. And this is focused more towards small to medium-sized businesses that take for granted their security presence, or they think that, you know what, a security assessment is so far out of my reach as a small business. But I would argue that you can't afford not to take security into consideration. We discussed yesterday that your security is, hackers are increasing exponentially. That means they need more targets. Hackers will look for the easiest targets out there. That means more unprotected small to medium-sized businesses come into view. It's estimated that, I think, and this is going from memory, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think the average cost now is around $3.6 million for a breach. That includes breaches of all size companies. It can ruin your small business. It can put you out of business if you have a data breach that takes your site ransom, where it's a data intrusion, where data is stolen. It can empty your bank account. These are just not idle threats anymore. It's occurring and it's happening every day. So if you're working with an agency that doesn't focus on security, maybe you might want to reconsider, because security is becoming so prevalent. The thing that we can do is we are partnered with a cybersecurity specialist, with Security Operations Center, with full-fledged security services, and we do an assessment for our customers. We do an assessment free every single year, but no matter who does it, do that assessment. And what it is software that we deploy in your system that will go through and it'll double check all of your security endpoints to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities. Antivirus is a great way to protect against external threats, but it still leaves holes. So we make sure that no matter what, all of those holes are filled. And the biggest, I love the biggest reaction, and I'll be quick because we're running out of time. We're trying to keep these in between 3 and 5 minutes. But the biggest thing that I find surprising is when it comes to something called dark web monitoring, it never ceases to amaze me that when we return an assessment, probably 80% of the time, I can give you your email password. I can tell you what your email password is, because that is how much data is out there that is shadow data. It's not data that you put out publicly, but it's data that's available for people who have nefarious purposes for that data. And it's available for sale most of the time. If you have any questions on security, please give us a call, or actually just email. The best way is to email techtip@proshark.com. Again, techtip, TECHTIP @proshark.com. Thanks again for an amazing first week. It's been wonderful. Send in your questions. We're happy to answer them as best as we can. And we look forward to keep going. Thank you. Bye. So far, we've covered introduction to and website optimization, digital footprint, your website, customer journey. Right now, we're focused primarily on websites and what people can do to improve their digital footprint when it comes to websites, what they can do to enhance the customer experience and increase customer interaction with their site. We've covered optimization, like I said, customer journey. We took a little bit of a detour with website security and network security, but today we're going to get back on the website kick, and we're trying to keep these in between 3 and 5 minutes. So we'll do the best we can with that. If you want to email questions in, again, that's techtip@proshark.com. Please send any comments, any questions. I appreciate everyone who's given feedback so far, so thank you very much. We will do everything we can to make this a program that is valuable to you. That's the whole reason that we're here. So today we want to look at good websites versus bad websites. There's a lot more that, well, I mean, going back, we've already had the discussion that websites used to be optional. They used to be, if you had a website, great. If you didn't, no problem. And if you did, it was simply a business card, something that you could put up on the web to say, here I am, this is our business. And there was not so much attention paid to them. Nowadays is a very, very different story, because your website is your office, it's your showroom, it's your business, it's who you are. 98%, or let's just say more than 90% of people start their purchasing decisions online now. And that said, it's really important. In fact, it's become so much more important for people to have good websites that, one, present a clear customer journey that are able to, that people can relate to, that are relevant. And it's very important for you to be able to deliver the messaging on your website to cut through the noise that's out there. Especially as of late, in the last couple of years, many more businesses have gone online, and they are now, that is their primary, for some, that's their primary presence, is online. You see so many e-commerce stores. So the question becomes, how do you cut through the noise? And there's multiple ways. Some of the ways we've already discussed. Optimizing your site are critical. It has to perform well. Customer journey is important. You have to be able to carry people from the time that they land on your website all the way through to the purchase decision. And to do that, you have to define what makes a good website and what makes a bad website. A bad website, and how to say this delicately, a lot of people think that they have the capability and capacity to build this, especially if you're starting out. They think, I'm going to save some money and I'm going to do it myself. For some people, that's fine. But the point is that if you want to make an impact, 9 times out of 10, you should probably have somebody do your website for you. You can get template sites for very inexpensive nowadays. You can get custom-made sites that are fairly reasonable. You can get do-it-yourself sites where the templates are at least good enough, but don't impact your performance so much that the negative detracts from the positive. And that's a challenging statement. So I think what's going to happen here is to go into good websites versus bad websites. We've already talked about performance optimization. We've already talked about customer journey. So how do you get a good website and maybe even do it yourself? And I think to answer that question will probably take a little bit more time than we have today. So let's keep this for tomorrow. This will be episode number 8. We'll continue good websites versus bad websites. So that said, if you have any questions or if you want any comments on this, please send in an email, techtip@proshark.com, and we will get that answered for you. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye. We're going to continue in good websites versus bad websites today. We left off yesterday saying that optimization, website performance was critical. We left off saying that your customer journey is critical, being able to get customers from point A to the final purchase. But there's a lot of different factors in what makes a good website and a bad website. So we started talking about the design of the website. You can get very inexpensively, you can get template websites, you can do them yourself with really nice templates. The one thing that we see that probably has the most negative impact regarding websites is people who do them themselves and they put up poor resolution images. They don't use necessarily a template, or they change the template to the point where it doesn't have the flow and design that it was originally intended to have. We would say that if you're going to do it yourself, that's fine. Find a website that you really like the look of, and without copying it, make sure you follow the same tenets. One that you typically like is probably professionally done, and you can mimic some of the design standards that those websites have without copying. It's very important. Please, we at no point in time do we ever recommend that you copy or plagiarize somebody else's work. That said, design and appealing capture of the eye is first and foremost. You have about 1.5 seconds to capture somebody's attention when they look at your website. So if the website doesn't load in 3 seconds, especially on mobile, then you're going to lose that customer. So make sure that you have a website that performs. Then when they get there, you have about a second and a half. You have about in between a second and a half and probably 3 seconds to capture their attention. So that means that your header has to be really strong. Your statement has to be compelling enough to get them to stay on your website. Because if you look at your analytics, most sites you'll see about a 6 seconds hang time, where people wait for the site to load, they look at it, and then they abandon it. They're out of here. It's really crucial that you put that compelling message right there in your hero. You have a good, solid, high resolution picture. You have a compelling message that you put up there that says, hey, here's who I am, what we do, and here's why you should stay. And from there, if you can get them engaged, then it's really important, and this is where customer journey comes in. It's really important that you keep them engaged, that you take that customer on a compelling journey through the website, through the homepage, what you offer down below. And it's not just all about sales. It's not about here's my product. Okay, buy it. It's about who you are as a company. It's about what you do, how you make a difference in the world. Social cause is a big driver in today's website economy or ecosphere, I should say. And who you are as a company is almost as important as there's lots of products out there. So who you are as a company helps people belong to your community. And we'll get into community in our next conversation, but it's really important that your website promotes a feeling of community, because no longer can you depend just on, and we'll also take a look at advertising and things you can do to attract customers and leads, but appealing or just selling a product doesn't work anymore. It now needs to be where you involve people in your community, involve them in who you are, why you do what you do. And if you can create that loyalty among your consumers, then you reduce the need for paid advertising, you reduce the need for outreach, and people just start coming to you. And that's the best option when it comes to websites and how you market your website, is to have people just come to you. So that said, that's all the time that we have today. So hopefully that helps you understand what makes a good website, or the difference between a good website and a bad website. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. techtip@proshark.com. One of them is happy to sit down with you and discuss your website, what you're trying to do. And even if yours is good or bad, I mean, we don't have any problems with helping people out, because our goal is to develop an ecosphere where people understand what makes a good website, what makes a bad website, and what makes a website successful, because at the end of the day, that's the goal of everyone who creates one. Thank you. I appreciate your time and look forward to our next session. Have a great day. Bye. Today, we are going to start our conversation on community. We just finished up with a comparison of good websites versus bad websites. One thing I'd like to encourage you to do is, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email them to techtip@proshark.com, TECHTIP@proshark.com. We certainly want to answer any questions that you may have, and we do appreciate the input and feedback we've received so far. So make sure you send in those questions. Today, we start looking at community and some of the changes, and this may actually bleed over into several more episodes beyond tomorrow. We're going to try and knock it out in two, but it's a pretty deep subject, and there's a lot of reasons why we're going to take a look at community and the impact that this approach will have on digital marketing in the future, well, in the near future and in the longer term. There is, ever since 2020, there's a lot of noise in the marketplace. You've seen a reduction in ROI from paid ads. You've seen the impact that changes in privacy policy have had on digital marketing. We'll take a look at Apple iOS 14.5, when they switched their default third-party opt-in from default allow to default not allow, and now you have to purposefully opt into marketing, third-party marketing such as pixel tracking, etc. They did it under the guise of privacy, and they look like heroes at face value, but in reality, this is just an effort to put a fence around the data that they receive. Just to give you some insight into this, and this is not a new topic, but it's one that a lot of people have not been given the truth about. So that's what we're kind of here to do. Not kind of, it's what we're here to do. iOS 14.5 was when Apple changed the default from opt-in to third-party marketing to opt out of third-party marketing. And what that did was that turned off the spigot or the ability to retarget by, and we'll just use Facebook as the biggest example because that's the one that everybody knows. No longer could Facebook put a pixel on anybody on the iOS platform without their express permission. Everybody's saying, oh, this is great. So they're protecting our privacy. Not the case. Because that means that Facebook and everybody else who was using that ability to third party market is no longer allowed to, unless they have explicit permission, no longer allowed to place that pixel. And what that does is it drives effectiveness of advertising down and the cost of advertising up. In one day, when Apple made that move, in one day, Facebook lost $232 billion of market cap. And guess what happened or ensued thereafter? Apple's ad platform, yes, they do have an ad platform, picked up significant market share, because what Apple didn't tell you is nobody else could put that pixel on your browser, but they can, and that's in their policy, that's in their privacy policy. So really, they didn't do you a service; they did you a disservice, because now they're the only ones that can default allow tracking of your web habits, your web traffic, and the sites that you visit and what advertisements you look at. So now only they have that access to that data. This changes everything in the digital marketing world, because if you rule out retargeting, well, Apple had 40% of the market. Guess who has the other 60%? And that's Google. And it's projected that by July of 2023, Google will follow suit with Apple and will no longer allow default opt-in tracking or third-party tracking of your visitation habits, basically. That means that now Apple's fenced off all of their 40% of the market. Google's about to fence off with their Android data. They're about to fence off the other 60%. I think that's enough for today. We're already over our 5-minute mark, so I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll pick up community tomorrow. What this leads into is our need to change the way we advertise, and that's what we're going to look at. I appreciate the time today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, make sure you email them to techtip@proshark.com. If you have any questions, make sure you visit our website proshark.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. There's a lot of data on there on the blogs, etc. So make sure you take a look at that, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Welcome to episode number 10 of Tech Tips, and we welcome you. And what we cover is everything digital, including digital marketing, digital footprint, your web presence, everything that people see or know about you online. And today we're going to resume with our discussion about community. Yesterday we covered iOS, privacy, retargeting, and the coming changes, the changes that happened with iOS, and the coming changes with Google. By July 2023, Google's anticipated to follow suit with what Apple did, and that is to default opt people out of third-party tracking, which means that both their data and Apple's data will be protected. And that said, that means only they will have the ability to default opt you into any type of retargeting. It's unfortunate. It's a ploy, not a ploy, but it's a tactic by them to guard their own data. What does this mean for you as the person marketing in the digital space? Well, one, these moves have made it more expensive to advertise because your ROI is going down drastically, which means your spend will need to go up drastically. And that's just to be heard. Being heard in the marketplace, you add to the diminished effectiveness of advertising, you add to that the increased amount of noise in the marketplace and all of the businesses that have come online in the last couple of years. And it gets hard to get your message across or out there to people who have not heard who you are, who don't know what you offer, who don't know what you're about. And this means a paradigm shift in the way that you advertise, in the way that you market online. And that said, we're going to use, and it's been overused to some extent, but we're going to use the word community. What you have to do is develop a following based on your product, your service, your loyalty. You have to develop a following in the market where you get the word out more of on a one by one basis. So, in other words, as you reach each consumer, that means you have to utilize that consumer to its their maximum benefit to be able to get the word out. Referrals, we're talking about inbound magnet advertising regarding the product or service. So people that are looking for a specific thing or a specific service, that they become inbound to you, as opposed to you just putting an paid ad up and expecting return on that paid ad, because those paid ads are not going to provide the weight of their own cost to you and benefit, if that makes sense. That said, it's not that those ads are no longer effective. Just remember that your cost of acquisition is going to go up significantly based on that. How do you build a community around your brand or your company? Again, the goal is to get magnet in based on product or service, but that means that you have to, on your outbound, you have to be more effective on not just saying, hey, buy my product. It's about saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're about, find interest in us, and then you can find out what products and services we offer. Email marketing to develop social cause. You've got PR pieces that say, hey, this is what we're about, or this is who we are, or this is our culture. Come visit us, and then we will let you know what we sell. And then it's also about, this is the general category of service or product that we offer. Come and we will build a community around this product or service type or category. And then we work to become the experts in that product, service, or category. Community is much more in depth from a branding and building perspective, but it's what's going to be required in the near future to generate sales activity and sales churn that has a positive ROI or a positive effect in the marketplace, because you have to be heard. So you have to, that means that you're going to have to become the expert, and you have to become not only the expert, but the perceived expert in your category. And from there, you can start to draw people into who you are, as opposed to pushing outbound marketing. That's our time for today. So I think that we'll probably continue community into the next episode. Appreciate your time. Thank you. If you have any questions, make sure you email us at techtip, TECHTIP, at proshark.com. You can also visit our website, send us a message, and we're happy to help. Thank you. Welcome to episode number 11 of Tech Tips. Please email any questions, comments, concerns, queries, whatever you have, to techtip@proshark.com. That's TECHTIP at proshark.com. We are here to answer any questions that you have about digital footprint, presence. We're covering today part 3 of community. One thing I want to back up is community has been a very widely used term, especially as of late, as things change in the digital world. And I want to clarify what a community is. A community of people that surrounds a company is a like-minded group of people that is there for a common reason. And the reason I want to clarify the definition is because community is a word that everybody uses nowadays to just loosely define a cohesive effort, and that's not necessarily the value of the community. The community is valuable when that cohesive effort is combined with a call to action or an outcome of the community. Anybody can create a group of people, but if that group of people doesn't benefit the members of that community, then there's very little reason to have or be part of the community. Let's get back to community and what collaborative efforts can be done to create a community that has a call to action. So we'll call that a collaborative community. And what a collaborative community means is that if we build a community around our company or our product or our service, then we want that community to be there for us. But the goal of the community is not to buy, but a byproduct of that community is to buy products and services. That can get a little bit confusing. So let's dig into that a little bit. A community of people, when I create a newsletter or when I create some activity around my company, and it does not have to do necessarily with the products or services, it can be a social cause for the company. It can be a reason for collecting a group of people to say, hey, here we are. This is what we're about. Are you interested? Come join us. Because at the end of the day, a community is going to provide you with much more value from a purchasing perspective than will just straight ads. And because ads are losing effectiveness, anybody who owns a company or is running digital ads understands that. Building this community has to be around a collaborative purpose. There has to be a cause for that community, number one, to join, but number two, to add value to both the members of that community and to the businesses that are organizing it. So when you create this community, don't do it myopically. Don't do it with a single site in mind. Do it with the focus of how can you create a win-win for other companies that want to become part of that same community. Because when you do that, when you create a bigger base for that community, you're going to create more draw to the community. And then those people are going to be far more interactive in that community. And when that happens, you will get the value back from that. As you're building a community, make sure that you focus on creating win-wins for the members and for any other companies that you would invite to that community. That said, that'll be all that we need to discuss today regarding collaborative communities. Just make sure that as you're creating this sphere of influence, that you do so with the understanding that you want to provide value, and from that value that you will get back the revenue, the income, the sales, all of that as a byproduct, not as the direct effort of the community. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. Again, if you have any questions, comments, don't hesitate to contact us. techtip@proshark.com. Thank you very much. Bye. Today, we're going to continue our series on community, a much overused term, but one that is appropriate. It takes into account the changes that are happening in the digital marketing world, as well as gives us a viable channel for creating demand for our products and services. Today, we're going to continue, like I said, on community. Yesterday, we finished out with collaborative community and what that might mean. Today, we're going to look at referral community and where we go with that. Community, as we said yesterday, and as we've been talking about for the last few episodes, community is a group of people with a cohesive cause, but it can't just be people around a cause because that doesn't result in anything. It's a community with a cohesive cause that results in an action. And when I say results in an action, you can create a group of people who are interested all day long in some subject matter, some social cause that you may have as a company. But if it doesn't result in purchases, sales, revenue, then the community doesn't have any value. And the value doesn't flow just one way. You're providing value to that community. They're providing value by purchasing your products or your services. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about collaborative community, which is making sure that you make a win-win for other companies involved. Involve other companies, because the bigger the base, the more demand that's going to be created and the more products and services that will be sold as a byproduct, not as the direct cause of creating this community. It has to be something that you create for the benefit of the members of that community, whether they be other companies or whether they be people associated with the community. And we're using community, probably way overusing the term community, and certainly open to suggestions on maybe better terminology, but it seems to be the most appropriate for our objectives. Today, though, I'd like to take a look at referral community. And when I say that, this group of people, this group of organizations, all has to have a commonality that results in the group coming together. But then there also has to be that benefit that we discussed. When you look at creating referrals across your community, most people think of affiliate marketing, they think of, MLM, things like that, and that's not what it is at all. When you're creating referrals, you're creating value for other companies, and you're taking a, we'll call it a commission for creating that referral. That's a benefit. That's a benefit to you. That's a benefit to the other company. That allows you to offer similar services or products that you may not provide, that are desired by the people, the group of people that you've created. So if you have a community of, say, HVAC, if you have a community of HVAC, you offer HVAC services, but you don't sell units, or you don't sell the accessories, or you don't sell the things associated with HVAC, then it behooves you to be able to complete the offer to this community, to partner with other companies that can sell into your community and that you get referral for. So that's what we mean by referral community. And it's very important that you take a look at all of your income streams in today's market, because the market is going to get tougher. It'll be much more competitive. There's a lot more noise in the marketplace, and you need to maximize the revenue stream that you have as you develop this community. But community will still be far more cost effective from an advertising perspective than doing paid ads, than doing paid marketing, than doing email campaigns. All of those are great when put together, but you have to still build this cohesive group of people. And this is why we find it so important, why we keep going over it, because going into the next decade, community, or whatever terminology we come up with for that group of people that we're creating for around a common cause, whatever name we come up with, whatever terminology, that group of people is going to be the way that businesses sell for the next decade. And I don't want to overuse the term, but I can't stress enough the importance of it. As you're looking at developing this community, make sure that you build out multiple income streams from this community, referral bases, etc. And make sure you emphasize those, or you accentuate those as you're building out this community. Because if you offer all of the services around a product or service or cause, whatever the case may be, or whatever subject you apply to it, if you make that 100% offer where everybody can, or somebody can find everything associated with that object or that subject, then you have the ability to draw in more people and create and generate more sales. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, please don't hesitate to email us, techtip, TECHTIP @proshark.com. Thank you very much. Bye.